fourth graders. We are starting a new week of lessons for science. So this is the first video of the 3 that you have for this week. Last week we talked about some different types of maps, and we looked at different parts of the land and some of the water that was on the maps. And I asked you to consider, what's the point? Why do we need to learn about land and water? What does this have to do with people? So we're going to continue to look for answers to that. I'm not going to give you answers to that yet, but we're going to continue to consider that question. So part of thinking about land and water on Earth, we need to think about what those look like. So some of you may have learned this in 2nd grade. I know that this was new to the standards for 2nd grade in the last couple of years, so I'm not sure if you got this or not. So I figured I'd put it in this PowerPoint so that we can either have it as a refresher or get the information we need before we can continue on. So we are talking about landforms as part of land. So when we talk about landforms, we're talking about mountains, we're talking about plains. And notice as we look at these pictures, how are they different? How are they the same? We have canyons, and then we also have valleys. Now notice the canyon typically is going to have a steeper slope. It's usually going to be in a mountain area. And then we have valleys, which would be more often found in between hills. We have islands, which are completely surrounded by water. We have hills. This is more familiar to us in Nebraska. We do not have mountains in Nebraska, but we do have some hills. Then when we talk about bodies of water, we're talking about oceans, which of course is our largest body of water that we could find. We have lakes, which we have quite a few of in the United States. There's Lake Michigan and Lake Superior, Lake Ontario that you might have heard of. But there are also smaller lakes. In Omaha, we have Standing Bear Lake and several others. So there are a lot of lakes in Nebraska. Then we have rivers. We all know that we live right next to the Missouri River. A river is usually not as wide, and it usually covers a much larger distance. So for example, the Missouri River goes from north to south through the United States. Then we have ponds. A pond can be as small as something that we might have in our neighborhood because of rain, or it could be a little bit larger, but it's nowhere near the size of a lake. And finally, we have glaciers. Glaciers are considered bodies of water because they are made of ice, which is water. So now that we have looked at some of those landforms and bodies of water, I want you to go back to the question, why is it important to study land and water? What does it have to do with us? What does it have to do with people? I want you to record the answer to that question in your notebook. Think specifically about those landforms and those bodies of water. How could the water affect the land, or how could the land affect the water? And why is that important? So your answer should be a little different than what you had in the last lesson. I want you to give it a little bit more thought. If you want to share your work with me, I would love to see what you have. You can draw this if you want to draw a picture and label it as a model, or you can just write the information. Again, my email is diana.capel@ops.org.